What if I told you that everything you've learned about investing could actually be destroying your wealth after you turn 50? Imagine this. Some of the world's most successful investors, including legendary Charlie Munger, have admitted they could have been twice as wealthy if they hadn't made one critical mistake in their later years. Has this ever happened to you? You look back at your financial decisions and realize that what seemed like small choices at the time created enormous consequences for your future. That's because time doesn't just magnify your smart moves, it dramatically amplifies your mistakes too, creating ripple effects that become increasingly difficult to recover from as you age. The financial world constantly pushes us to chase returns, find the next breakout stock, or discover the next cryptocurrency moonshot. We're bombarded with messages about investing more aggressively and taking bigger risks, especially if we feel behind on our retirement goals. But what if I told you that after 50, this conventional wisdom isn't just wrong, it could be catastrophically dangerous to your financial future? But before we begin, please hit the like button and let me know where in the world you're watching from today. It's always fascinating seeing who's joining us from around the world, and if you haven't already, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any of our future videos. Stay with me until the end, because what you're about to discover might completely transform how you think about wealth building in the second half of life. The financial media rarely discusses this profound shift that should occur in your investment strategy as you age. Yet it's perhaps the most important financial transition you'll ever make. When you're younger, taking calculated risks makes perfect sense. Those are your offensive years, the time to swing for the fences occasionally. But after 50, something fundamental changes. The clock. That faithful friend who once gave you the gift of long-term compounding begins working against you. Each year becomes more precious, and the runway for recovery shrinks dramatically. I've witnessed this painful reality unfold countless times with real investors. There's a particular tragedy in watching someone in their late 50s or early 60s feeling the pressure of inadequate savings, make one desperate lunge for financial security through aggressive investments, only to suffer losses they simply don't have time to recover from. What you need isn't another hot stock tip or get-rich-quick scheme. What you need is a complete paradigm shift in how you approach wealth preservation and growth after 50. The difference between financial security and disaster in your golden years often comes down to understanding one critical principle that Warren Buffett's right-hand man emphasized throughout his remarkable career. What exactly is this paradigm shift? It starts with recognizing that the greatest danger to your financial future isn't missing out on gains. It's suffering catastrophic losses that you no longer have time to recover from. Think about this. A 50% investment loss at age 30 is unfortunate but recoverable over decades of work. That same 50% loss at age 60, with perhaps only 5-10 working years remaining, it could permanently derail your retirement dreams and fundamentally alter your quality of life when you're most vulnerable. This isn't about becoming fearful or ultra-conservative with every dollar. It's about understanding that the rules of the game change dramatically after 50, and your strategy must evolve accordingly. If you've found value in these financial insights, hit that subscribe button and join our community of thoughtful investors who are building wealth the right way after 50. This transformation in your financial mindset becomes clear when you understand the hidden truth behind the mathematics of recovery. You see, the timeline for bouncing back from losses fundamentally changes as you age, and this reality reshapes everything about how you should approach your investments. Consider this scenario. If you lose 50% of your portfolio, you don't just need a 50% gain to recover. You need a 100% gain just to get back to where you started. That's the unforgiving reality of percentage math that most financial advisors rarely emphasize. When you're 35, this might be challenging but achievable over decades of continued earnings and investments. But at 60, the journey back becomes not just difficult, but potentially impossible. With each passing year after 50, your timeline for recovery compresses dramatically. You simply have fewer earning years ahead, less time for the magic of compounding to work, and fewer opportunities to pivot when strategies fail. This isn't pessimism, it's a clear-headed recognition of reality that leads to more prudent decision-making when it matters most. Behind the scenes of almost every financial catastrophe for older Americans lies this fundamental miscalculation. They treated losses at 60 the same way they treated losses at 30, not recognizing the profound impact of the compressed recovery timeline. This revelation leads us to another counterintuitive truth that transforms how successful investors approach their later years. Consistency ultimately trumps spectacular returns. The flashy stories of overnight crypto millionaires or tech stock explosions dominate financial media, but they mask a more powerful reality. The investor who earns a steady, reliable 7 to 9% year after year will, over meaningful time periods, almost always outperform the one who alternates between exhilarating 30% gains and devastating 25% losses. The mathematics of compounding favors the consistent, not the erratic. As your investment horizon shortens, the value of durability increases exponentially. A single year of significant losses can derail decades of careful planning. This isn't merely a minor adjustment to your approach. It represents a fundamental shift in perspective that places capital preservation at the core of your strategy. I've witnessed countless investors make this mental breakthrough. That moment when they realize sleeping soundly at night, knowing their wealth is secure, actually delivers more value than the possibility of spectacular but uncertain gains. Ironically, this psychological transformation often leads to better long-term performance precisely because it helps investors avoid the catastrophic mistakes that permanently derail financial security. The impact of this mindset shift extends beyond your portfolio into your entire relationship with money and risk. You begin to recognize that in the financial world, what you don't do often matters more than what you do. Avoiding disaster becomes more important than chasing opportunity, a perspective that runs counter to everything the financial media promotes but aligns perfectly with the quiet success of history's greatest wealth preservers. Now I want to go even deeper into perhaps the most destructive force in investment psychology, something that silently destroys more portfolios after 50 than almost any other factor. If you've experienced this shift toward more defensive investing in your own financial thinking, type defense mode activated in the comments below. This destructive force I'm referring to leads us to one of the most profound revelations about investing after 50, the extraordinary power of embracing boring investments. Our culture relentlessly glorifies the exciting, the novel, the disruptive. But when it comes to preserving and growing wealth in the later stages of life, these qualities often become the catalysts for financial disaster. The financial landscape is littered with the ruins of portfolios that chased excitement rather than stability. Behind the scenes of almost every major financial setback for investors over 50, you'll find the same pattern: abandoning proven, stable investments for something more thrilling, more current, more talked about at dinner parties. Munger's wisdom cuts through this cultural noise with crystal clarity. After 50, avoid leverage, debt, speculation, and complexity. These elements might temporarily enhance returns, but they dramatically increase your vulnerability to market shocks, shocks that you no longer have the timeline to recover from. Think about the architecture of financial disasters. Almost all involves some combination of borrowed money, speculative positions, and instruments so complex that even their creators barely understand them. The revelation here is both beautiful and profound. The less thrilling your investment approach after 50, the more thrilling your retirement is likely to be. There's a certain poetry in the realization that financial excitement in your 60s, 70s, and beyond comes not from watching volatile investments swing wildly, but from having the freedom and security that accompanies steady, reliable returns. The transformation happens when you recognize that sleeping well at night is actually worth more than the remote possibility of spectacular gains. This mindset shift connects directly to another silent destroyer of wealth that Munger identified with his characteristic bluntness, the poison of envy. He famously called envy the dumbest of the 7 deadly sins, for a brilliant reason. It's the only one that provides absolutely no pleasure in return. This insight penetrates to the core of human psychology. Portfolios are rarely destroyed by an inability to earn. They're destroyed by the toxic comparison game that drives people to abandon sound strategies when they see others apparently getting rich quicker. I've witnessed this journey unfold with tragic regularity. The neighbor buys a luxury car. The brother-in-law brags about a crypto windfall, and suddenly decades of disciplined investing seem inadequate. In these moments of weakness, sound financial foundations are abandoned for speculative gambles that often end in tears. The hidden truth that can liberate you from this trap is simple but profound. Financial independence isn't a competition. Your neighbor's investment returns have precisely zero impact on your ability to achieve your goals. The only score that matters is whether your strategy provides the resources you need for the life you want to live. This envy factor becomes exponentially more dangerous as we age. What's merely unwise in our 30s becomes potentially catastrophic after 50. The reason is straightforward but powerful: time horizon. When you're younger, an envious mistake might set you back a few years. After 50, that same decision can erase decades of patient compounding, leaving insufficient time for recovery. If you've ever felt the pull of investment envy, watching others chase trendy opportunities, type "freedom from comparison" in the comments to mark your commitment to this crucial aspect of financial wisdom. The mindset transformation that liberates you from envy connects directly to another of Munger's most candid admissions, his profound regret about selling great businesses too soon. With characteristic bluntness, he acknowledged this as one of his biggest financial mistakes, one that cost him potentially billions in foregone wealth. When you discover a truly exceptional business with durable competitive advantages, the winning strategy often becomes breathtakingly simple. Just hold it. Don't overthink it. Don't try to time the market. Don't worry about short-term fluctuations or quarterly earnings misses. Just hold. The revelation here is that our natural psychological impulses often drive us to do exactly the opposite of what serves our financial interests. Selling winners too early to lock in gains, while stubbornly clinging to losers, hoping they'll recover. This behavioral pattern is so consistent it might as well be hardwired into our DNA, and it becomes especially dangerous after 50, when recovery from mistakes becomes exponentially more difficult. Behind the scenes of most investment journeys lies this overlooked truth: the transformative impact of simply allowing great businesses to compound over decades rather than constantly jumping between investments. The decision to hold through volatility, to resist the urge to tinker with success, often makes the difference between modest and extraordinary results. This pattern of holding quality assets through thick and thin illuminates another counterintuitive principle that Munger discovered through decades of market observation. The relationship between certainty and accuracy is often inverse. In other words, the louder someone proclaims their market predictions, the more likely they are to be catastrophically wrong. This revelation challenges the very foundation of how most people consume financial information. Think about the pundits and experts you see on financial networks or read in investment newsletters, those who speak with unwavering confidence about exactly where interest rates will be next year, precisely which sectors will outperform, or definitively which currencies will strengthen. The hidden truth cuts to the heart of this theatre. Throughout market history, those who sounded most certain were consistently the ones who lost the most money, both for themselves and their followers. The wisdom here transcends investing and touches on a fundamental insight about human knowledge. The world is simply too complex, too interconnected, and too unpredictable for any single mind to fully comprehend. The genuine masters of any domain, whether finance, science, or philosophy, are precisely those who have the deepest appreciation for the limits of their understanding. This journey of intellectual humility creates a profound awakening. Successful investing isn't about being a know-it-all. It's about the opposite, recognizing what you don't understand and having the discipline to avoid those areas entirely. Don't miss future videos on building financial security. Subscribe now and get proven strategies delivered straight to your feed. This transformation is psychological rather than technical. It requires developing something remarkably rare in today's culture, the courage to say, "I don't know." These three simple words, so difficult for many successful people to utter, become a superpower when applied to investment decisions. By acknowledging the limits of your understanding, you naturally avoid betting on nonsense and stick to areas where you can make reasonable judgments. Have you experienced the relief that comes from saying, "I don't know," instead of pretending to understand something complex? Type intellectual honesty in the comments if you've felt this liberating shift in your approach to investing or life decisions. This intellectual honesty about what we don't know creates a powerful framework for successful investing after 50, what Munger and Buffett famously called your circle of competence. The revelation here isn't that you need to become an expert in everything. It's precisely the opposite. You need to clearly define the boundaries of what you genuinely understand and have the discipline to stay firmly within those lines. Berkshire Hathaway's investment approach exemplifies this principle perfectly. They understood insurance, so they bought insurance companies. They understood consumer brands like Coca-Cola and See's candies, so they bought them. And critically, they simply ignored industries they didn't understand, regardless of how trendy or promising they appeared to others. This selective approach saved them from countless disasters over the decades. During the dot-com bubble, they avoided technology stocks not because they thought they were overvalued, though they were, but because Buffett and Munger didn't understand them well enough. They received mockery at the time for missing the opportunity of a lifetime until the bubble burst and their patience was vindicated. The journey to financial security after 50 requires this kind of deliberate self-awareness, the courage to say, "This is beyond my expertise," and walk away, regardless of how exciting the opportunity seems. The weight lifted when you no longer feel compelled to have an opinion on everything, from Bitcoin to biotech, from interest rates to international politics, creates mental space for deeper thinking in areas where you actually possess insight. Now, let's explore another profound mindset transformation that becomes increasingly crucial after 50. One that completely reframes how you think about your relationship with money and work. This transformation from employee thinking to owner thinking may sound subtle, but it represents one of the most fundamental paradigm shifts on your wealth-building journey. Most people, even highly educated, successful professionals, spend their entire lives trapped in employee thinking. They optimize for promotions, prestigious titles, corner offices, and perks. They measure success by salary increases and status symbols. There's nothing inherently wrong with career advancement, but Munger points out a brutal truth. Titles don't compound. Ownership does. This revelation illuminates the fundamental difference between the two approaches. Employees focus on looking important and climbing hierarchies. Owners focus on possessing, things that generate cash while they sleep. An employee asks, "How do I please my boss?" An owner asks, "Does this make money long-term?" Only one of these questions leads to durable wealth. I've witnessed this breakthrough moment for countless professionals, doctors, lawyers, executives, who suddenly realize they've been playing the wrong game. Despite decades of six-figure incomes, many find themselves with impressive job titles but minimal assets that work independently of their time and effort. They've been running on an increasingly sophisticated treadmill, but a treadmill nonetheless. The awakening often comes with a startling realization. Even high-income professionals are just a few missed paychecks away from financial pressure if they haven't developed ownership mindsets alongside their careers. This vulnerability becomes increasingly dangerous after 50, when recovery options narrow dramatically and the window for rebuilding shrinks. Has this distinction between employee thinking and owner thinking created an aha moment for you? Type ownership mindset in the comments if you've been contemplating this crucial transformation in your own financial journey. The ownership revolution leads directly to one of Munger's most powerful insights, drawn from perhaps his most formative experience, living through the Great Depression. Born in 1924, Munger witnessed firsthand an economic catastrophe that most of us only read about in history books. This living memory imprinted a perspective that shaped his entire investment philosophy. Prosperity is not the default setting of economic life. This revelation cuts against the grain of modern financial thinking. We tend to view recessions as temporary aberrations in an otherwise upward trajectory. Munger saw something different, a natural pendulum that swings between feast and famine throughout history. This historical awareness creates a profound transformation in risk assessment, especially crucial after 50, when you no longer have the luxury of waiting decades for markets to recover. When you truly internalize that economic conditions fluctuate cyclically and sometimes severely, blind optimism becomes not just naive, but potentially fatal to your financial health. This doesn't mean becoming pessimistic. It means developing a realistic appreciation for the rhythm of economic life and building your financial fortress to withstand inevitable storms. Behind the scenes of most financial catastrophes lies this fundamental miscalculation, the assumption that good times represent the natural order rather than just one phase in an ongoing cycle. The wisdom in Munger's perspective isn't about predicting exactly when the next downturn will arrive. It's about acknowledging that it inevitably will and structuring your financial life accordingly. This cyclical awareness connects directly to what might be Munger's most distilled wisdom, what he described as the critical habits that protected his wealth more than any brilliant investment move. With characteristic bluntness, he reduced his success formula to 3 simple subtractions: avoiding debt, avoiding drama, and avoiding harmful associations. The power in this framework lies in its emphasis on prevention rather than action. Debt acts as a magnifier of mistakes, transforming recoverable errors into financial catastrophes. Drama wastes precious mental energy that could otherwise be directed toward clear thinking and rational decision-making. And harmful associations, people who are reckless, dishonest, unreliable, or addicted to shortcuts, create a form of social contagion that inevitably affects your own judgment. What's remarkable about this triad is how it contradicts conventional wisdom about wealth building. Most financial advice focuses on what to do, which stocks to buy, which strategies to employ, which opportunities to seize. Munger's approach inverts this completely, suggesting that what you don't do matters far more than what you do. This revelation creates a decision framework based on subtraction rather than addition, on removing negative influences rather than constantly seeking positive ones. The impact becomes increasingly profound after 50, when the margin for error shrinks dramatically. A single misstep with leveraged investments or a toxic business partnership can erase decades of careful wealth building with insufficient time to recover. This protection-based approach crystallizes into Munger's most counterintuitive insight. For investors over 50, building wealth at this stage is far less about making brilliant moves and far more about avoiding catastrophic ones. If these preventative measures, avoiding debt, drama, and harmful associations, have protected your wealth more effectively than chasing returns, drop protection mindset in the comments. This revelation about protection inverts the entire paradigm of modern investment thinking, which relentlessly focuses on opportunity seeking rather than disaster prevention. But there's another mathematical reality so fundamental, yet so overlooked, that it deserves special attention: the extraordinary power of patient compounding. The revelation that often surprises even sophisticated investors is how powerful steady compounding becomes over 15+ years. A reliable 7% return, consistently achieved and reinvested, doubles your money approximately every decade. This means that with just 15 years of patience, your capital can grow by 2.8 times without taking extraordinary risks or making brilliant stock picks. The journey to this understanding transforms your entire relationship with investing. By focusing on the marathon rather than the sprint, you allow the miracle of compounding to do the heavy lifting. This mathematical reality reveals something profound about wealth building after 50. The frantic pursuit of spectacular returns often leads to precisely the kind of catastrophic mistakes that destroy on capital. Meanwhile, the patient investor who achieves reasonable, consistent returns ends up substantially wealthier, simply by avoiding those errors and letting time work its magic. Behind the scenes of almost every financial success story after 50 lies this pattern: not brilliant market timing or discovering the next Amazon, but the quiet power of steady returns, compounding year after year without interruption. When you shift your focus from the daily noise of market movements to the powerful, long-term trend of compound growth, a remarkable sense of calm emerges. The daily financial headlines become less urgent, the market's short-term gyrations less concerning. This perspective connects directly to what might be Munger's most fundamental insight, one so simple it's often overlooked, yet so powerful it underpins everything else. The mathematical reality that governs all financial outcomes is brutally straightforward. If you don't spend less than you earn, no investment strategy on earth can save you. This truth transcends sophistication, education, and income level. People with 7-figure salaries routinely end up broke in retirement because they consistently lived beyond their means. Meanwhile, modest earners with disciplined spending habits often retire in comfort because they understood and respected this fundamental arithmetic. The transformation happens when you realize that every dollar not spent becomes a soldier in your financial army, working tirelessly to produce more dollars through investment returns. This compounding effect creates a virtuous cycle that accelerates over time, but it cannot begin without the discipline to resist unnecessary consumption. The math is unforgiving. Someone who earns $250,000 but spends $260,000 is getting poorer, regardless of their sophisticated investment strategy. Someone who earns $60,000 but consistently invests $12,000 will inevitably build wealth over time. This revelation often comes as an uncomfortable awakening, especially for high-income professionals who've grown accustomed to lifestyle inflation. If you've experienced this fundamental shift in perspective, recognizing that financial freedom starts with spending discipline rather than investment brilliance, drop "arithmetic works" in the comments. Now, I want to explore how this fundamental arithmetic combines with one final principle to create a comprehensive framework for financial security after 50. The ability to live below your means represents a profound philosophical stance toward life itself, but this wisdom combines with another powerful truth. The principles that lead to financial security after 50 aren't actually complicated or mysterious. This revelation often comes as a surprise to many who've been conditioned to believe that successful investing requires sophisticated strategies, advanced technical analysis, or complex financial instruments. The hidden truth is that the fundamentals of financial security are remarkably simple. Spend less than you earn, invest consistently in quality assets, avoid debt, maintain adequate insurance, and don't make catastrophic mistakes. These principles could fit on an index card. They don't require an MBA or specialized knowledge. They've remained essentially unchanged for centuries, yet this simplicity creates a paradox. If the principles are so straightforward, why do so few people successfully follow them? The answer reveals perhaps the most profound insight of all. Simplicity isn't easy. What these principles require isn't intellectual sophistication, but something far more challenging. The emotional discipline to follow common-sense guidelines, even when everyone around you is doing the opposite. This distinction between simple and easy lies at the heart of Munger's philosophy. The journey to financial security doesn't demand brilliant market timing or discovering the next breakthrough technology. It demands something more elusive, the psychological. Resilience to maintain course when markets plunge, the patience to let compounding work its magic over decades, the strength to resist lifestyle inflation as your income grows. Behind the scenes of most financial disasters lies not a lack of knowledge, but a failure of emotional discipline. The inability to stick with what you know to be true when temptations arise or fear sets in. This revelation leads us to what might be the most transformative insight of all about wealth building after 50. The greatest obstacles aren't technical, but psychological. The battle isn't fought primarily in the marketplace, but in the mirror. This mirror battle represents the true frontier of financial success in your later years. You're not competing against other investors or the market itself. You're competing against your own worst impulses. The fear that drives panic selling during market downturns, the greed that tempts you into speculative gambles, the envy that makes you abandon sound strategies. When you see others apparently getting rich quicker, the overconfidence that convinces you can time the market. Financial security comes from patience, discipline, and avoiding the catastrophic mistakes that can derail decades of effort. Munger's legacy isn't just the billions he accumulated alongside Warren Buffett. It's his practical philosophy for navigating the real battlefield where financial independence is won or lost. Our own psychology. I've witnessed remarkable transformations when people finally grasp this truth, when they realize that their financial journey isn't primarily about finding the perfect investment strategy, but about mastering their own emotional responses to market fluctuations, economic news, and the financial choices of those around them. This shift in perspective often marks the turning point between perpetual financial stress and genuine security. If you've recognized this fundamental truth in your own financial journey, that the greatest obstacles to financial success live within your own mind rather than in the marketplace, type "mirror battle" in the comments to acknowledge this often overlooked dimension of wealth building. As we reflect on Charlie Munger's legacy, I'm struck by how counterintuitive yet profoundly simple his advice really is. The journey to financial security after 50 isn't about financial acrobatics or chasing the next big thing. It's about patience, discipline, and the quiet wisdom to avoid the catastrophic mistakes that can derail decades of careful planning. What makes Munger's approach so powerful is that it addresses not just our portfolios, but our psychology, the true battlefield where financial independence is won or lost. These aren't just investment principles, they're a practical philosophy for navigating the second half of life with clarity and purpose. If these insights resonated with you today, I'd love for you to join our community of thoughtful investors. Hit that subscribe button to continue exploring these transformative ideas together, away from the noise and hype of mainstream financial media. We're building something different here, a space where financial wisdom cuts through the market noise with clarity and common sense. If you found value in today's discussion, a simple like helps tremendously in sharing these ideas with others who might benefit from them. And if you recognized yourself or your own financial journey somewhere in this conversation, drop Munger's wisdom in the comments. I read every single one and would love to hear which principle resonated most deeply with you. I've prepared another video that explores how to actually implement some of these principles in today's market environment. It's a perfect companion to what we've discussed today. Click right here and let's continue the conversation. After all, as Munger himself might say, the journey to financial wisdom isn't a sprint, it's a lifelong marathon. Best run in good company.